Secretary Chow, thank you so much for being with us. I know how crazy your calendar is these days. So.
Well, it's my second stint, so I kind of understand what's going on.
You know the pace. So I was just saying that there's probably no technology change that has the potential to more impact people's lives in more ways than autonomous transportation. Can you talk a little bit about how the department is approaching that?
You're absolutely right. Transformative technology is poised to revolutionize the way we work, we move, and we connect with one another. And so the department has a very large responsibility in being a regulator to this rapidly changing environment. Our goals are very simple, and they're also very direct. Number one, we want to be tech neutral. We don't want to be top-down, command and control. And we don't want to pick winners and losers, because we don't believe that the government is a fountain of all wisdom and that we know best and what is the future. So we want to partner and we want to work with the private sector to ensure that, number one, safety is always paramount. That is our goal. Safety must be number one. And number two, we need to also address legitimate public concerns about security and also privacy. And we also want to make sure that, again, the government is tending to all these concerns in a responsible way that will not hamper innovation.
Yeah, interesting. So let's talk about the tech neutral piece. I mean, if you look at other countries around the world, well, the big example is China. We have our friends from Yunnan province here this morning, but also in Europe as well. Many countries have decided that this is sort of a critical issue for the future, and they have to have a strategy. They have to have a policy. You're saying you don't see that as the government's role, to have a policy for developing autonomous vehicles.
I just said what our policy is.
Was to be neutral.
I think we need to be tech neutral because the technological changes are occurring so rapidly that I don't think the government is in a good place. I do have faith in the private sector. Through the competitive process, there will be competition, which will yield a much more prevalent or more accepting technology. So it's not up to us.
Right.
Heavens, if the government were to get involved with technology selections, I think we would actually impede progress.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that we are regulating in a way that doesn't hamper innovation, that also comes around to the reality in the future, and we can discuss when, that there will be self-driving cars.
Well, let's discuss when. How quickly do you think that's going to happen in the United States?
I think it's going to happen a lot faster than what some people think, but not as fast as others.
So quantify that, please.
Well, you know, I'll give you one little example. When we first came into office, I understood right away how important this issue is, and the role of the regulator is very important in fostering the growth of innovation, emerging technologies, while also, again, preserving and promoting safety, security, and privacy. And so we actually produced a set of guidelines. It was called the Vision for Safety, AV 2.0. And it was not a prescriptive outline of what needs to be done, but rather, rather a kind of like a roadmap, but that was flexible for the future. So we thought that those guidelines, which were issued in September 12, 2017, would hold for a while.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, emerging technologies is occurring at such a rapid rate that we're going to be coming out with AV 3.0, new guidelines, hopefully by September of this year.
Because things change so fast. Can you give an
Because
example of something that has changed that's forced a new set of guidelines?
Well, I think the experimentation, no, that's a bad word, because we want to foster comfort and reassurance. But I think certainly all of the auto companies, OEMs, and Silicon Valley are looking at self-driving cars at a level 2. And I think for
By level 2, you mean that still have a human being.
Right, but there's still a wheelbase, there's still controls.
There's a steering wheel and a set of brakes.
Yes, and then the human being has to touch that wheel within a certain period of time, every 10 minutes or so. Now, that came about much faster. And so going from level 1 to level 2 took much faster than expected. Going from level 2 to level 3, I think it's going to take a lot faster, shorter time. So all of this is occurring very rapidly. But let me also say that there's hesitation. If you take all the polls on people's perception of self-driving cars, if you say that it is a driverless car, the anxiety level actually increases. So 74% of Americans feel some kind of hesitation about getting into a self-driving car. Now, if you still use the word, again, if you use the word driverless, that actually increases 2 percentage points.
My understanding is developing a level 3 car, no steering wheel, no brakes, no driver, requires a waiver from the government.
Right.
And so far, you haven't given anyone a waiver.
Well, there's only one application for a waiver.
Who's that from?
It's from General Motors. And they were very aggressive in applying for the waiver. This is such a new concept.
Why not let them try?
Because safety is number one. Our number one concern is safety. And what happened at Tempe, Arizona last month shows how fragile the public trust is to these new emerging technologies. And so as regulators, again, we want to address legitimate public concerns about safety, security, privacy, without hampering innovation, which is such a vital part of our country's competitiveness, around the world.
When do you think that General Motors waiver might be granted?
First of all, it is so unusual that we have to set up a process, which is why I'm telling you, you do not want the government to be involved in a lot of these things. Because what we have to do is we have to set up a process in which the public can comment. So since this is a first-time waiver, we have to set up a process, then we have to go out and ask people whether they agree with the process. So every step of the way.
It will take many months.
Every step of the way, there has to be transparency and there has to be public input. And we seek that.
Does it matter if the United States is first? I mean, other countries want to be first or near the first. Does it matter if we're the first in your view?
We are naturally the first in so many fields because we're a society that is so open, that is so innovative and creative, and there is such tolerance for unusual ways of doing things. I mean, if you go to, I love this phrase, Austin. How many of you have been in Austin? It's a great city. It's got a terrific high-tech industry. You know what their slogan is? Keep Austin weird. That is so unusual in any other country. I mean, we are a country of nonconformists. We are innovative, creative, and we don't just hew to what has been done in the past. And that is our competitive strength.
Yeah.
So we need to preserve that.
Yes.
We want to foster innovation, and we take the lead throughout the whole world. But there is this there are these legitimate public concerns that we need to address as regulators. And also, the other thing that's happening is, we do not want a patchwork of state-by-state regulations. That would not be good.
You think it should be done by the federal government?
I don't know whether it should be done by the federal government or whether there should be greater coordination between the states and the federal government so that autonomous vehicles and drones can cross state lines. And these are very commonsensical issues. And we also want to be kind of like a catalyst to sharing best practices.
Yeah.
There are so many new ideas that are coming up. How do we share with the states and local governments on what is happening, what can be done? And we would counsel them not to be too heavy-handed. Not because we don't care about safety or any of these things. No, we care a great deal. That is number one. I have said it 3 times now.
Yes, no, you've said it more than 3
Okay,
times.
more
So
than
you're good.
So-
We got you. But so
Right.
let's.
But we want to make sure that we are not hampering innovation.
But let's talk about drones, because with unmanned drones, we're dealing with something where the safety concerns aren't quite as heightened, and you are being more experimental there. You've approved a bunch of experiments. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, drones are a new phenomenon that is, again, exceeding expectations. On February 10th of this year, there are over 1 million drones that have been registered. And, drones are like airplanes. They are, under the law, defined as an aircraft. So the integration of drones and larger aircrafts into our national airspace is an absolute priority.
But we don't quite have that.
Safety has to be the number one concern.
So you've approved a number of experiments in different parts of the country.
So let me go back there. So on May 7th, we approved 10 pilot sites. They are consortiums formed by different groups with state and local governments, of state, local, and also tribal territories, in which we will have pilot programs on studying drones, how they can fly over the heads of people, fly at night, and fly outside, away from the line of sight. Currently, these 3 conditions are not allowed, and we have to give waivers. Now, as the proliferation of drones occur, it will take a long time to have to individually give these waivers. So we are looking at these test sites to study and hopefully gain more information about how do drones perform in all different geographic areas, in all different temperature zones, in all different climatic conditions. So we hope to glean really important information that will guide us in our rulemaking, in our regulations. But I might also add, there were others who were not chosen. We only had the capacity to select 10. So there were no losers. There are other consortiums that have ideas on how to test the use of drones. And so FAA, which is under the Department of Transportation, will be going out to these groups as well.
And so, again, how far away do you think we are from, say, drone delivery?
Well, we know that Amazon and many other organizations are already testing this concept. But whether it works technologically is one thing, but whether there is consumer acceptance is another, which is why I always challenge Silicon Valley and the innovators who are involved in this industry that they've got to share their comfort level, their familiarity on this new technology with the public. Because consumer acceptance of this new technology is the constraint to the full potential of this new technology.
And it's going to be critical. So I know there are a lot of people here who are involved in this technology and have questions, and I want to open it up to questions. But before I do that, I have to ask you, you and I have known each other for a long time. You've
done very well. I'm proud of you.
You have too. You have decades of experience in Washington. You've seen different administrations come and go. You've worked for some of them in very distinguished positions. We've never seen an administration like this one. In terms of the president's loose relationship with the facts, in terms of his rejection of Republican orthodoxy on free trade, in terms of what we've seen in the last couple of weeks, his rejection of our allies and embrace of our enemies, in terms of the way he treats congressional leadership, of which your husband is a member, in terms of attitudes towards immigration. It's a completely new experience for us. And while none of these things are directly, that's a statement of fact. None of these things are directly in your purview as Secretary of Transportation. You do have to operate in that milieu. Can you talk a little bit about how you deal with that?
Well, first of all, every president is different. They have their own particular styles. And number two, you know, our country, and I want to emphasize this to the foreign visitors who are here, our country is a very young country. It's robust, and it's a full democracy. So if you look at the founding fathers, and if you look at the writings, and many of them were anonymous, we are a very confrontational, a very argumentative, a very raucous society.
Never quite this raucous.
What has changed is now with 24/7 media, we now see everything. Every person here is a reporter. Every person here is potentially a journalist. So we are seeing, you know, the full array of interactions, not only in the political arena and the government arena, but throughout our country as well.
But when you see something, your president or your administration do something that you don't agree with, which is it's not the first time it's happened in the history of the country, but how do you personally deal with that?
Well, I believe in public service. And I believe it is a privilege and an honor to serve our people and our country. I also think that the American people deserves a functioning government. And I've been in government before. This is my 4th administration. And you asked initially.
I won't ask you to rank them.
No.
That would be unfair.
But you asked me initially here, you know, whether my schedule was like. And I've assembled a great group of people at the Department of Transportation. We are dealing with important issues such as emerging technologies, transformative technologies, and we want to set a template that will foster and cultivate this industry, let it grow, but also, again, take care of issues that people care about, that we all care about, such as safety. Again, safety is number one. Because what happened in Tempe, Arizona, was a broach of trust. People began to question more this new technology. And
trust is critical.
So we need to foster and maintain that trust. I want the innovation and the creativity in this sector to grow and to blossom because it is our competitive advantage. But I've got to take care of safety, security.
Good answer. There's a question right back there. Let's go ahead and take it.
Secretary Chow, Dan Primack from Axios. I'm curious, when you came into office, or when the administration came in, there was a lot of talk about
I'm going to give you a little plug. Axios is a media publication.
Thank you. This is now going to be a nicer question. There was a lot of talk about an infrastructure plan. That was a big thing, and a lot of that would have been under your purview. Clearly, it seems we're not getting one by the end of the first half of the administration. Should we expect a big, robust infrastructure plan in the second half?
Great question. Yes, thank you.
Well, the infrastructure is proposal, first of all, includes not only transportation, but 12 other agencies. The larger ones are energy, EPA, FCC, VA hospitals, Department of Agriculture, Department of Labor. And so it is a multi-agency proposal. The proposal was sent up to the Congress on February 12th of this year. We want to work on a bipartisan basis, as we have said many times, and there appears to be a lack of consensus on how to pay for this, which I'm sure you are not surprised at.
Do you think that may change? I mean, at the beginning of the administration, people thought this and taxes were kind of the two areas where maybe the gridlock could be broken, and that where the president had an opportunity to put together a bipartisan coalition and make something happen. Obviously, nothing's going to happen this year. We're stuck. But once we get past the election, do you think there's an opportunity to really do something big on infrastructure?
Well, that is certainly our hope. I mean, we haven't given up hope now. You know, we are still continuing discussions. And again, how do you pay for it is the toughest question. So there are many ways of paying for the infrastructure proposal. And I would say the majority of them are not ones that probably I can get consensus within this audience. What we have suggested in the department is to allow the private sector to invest, to finance, help finance public infrastructure. In 26 states in our country right now, there are restrictions on the private sector coming in to invest in public infrastructure. We have the most robust capital markets in the world. We have pension funds, endowment funds who are conservative. So they want conservative investments, i.e. they would like collateral that does not walk away. Well, I think infrastructure proposals, infrastructure projects fits that category.
Doesn't walk away.
Yes.
Hi, Secretary Chow, Brian O'Keefe from Fortune. Just building on that a little bit, I mean, you made it clear that you don't think the government should pick winners. I don't think people in this community want the government to do that. But I think also...
I'm going to scare you a little bit, and I'll interrupt, and I'll let you go ahead.
Sure.
We have actually picked some projects, but that have not worked out with the passage of time. So
I think
please.
Everybody probably in this community, though...
Not we, but previously.
The government.
The government.
The government, they were here to help, and it didn't work out. But the government does need to help.
Yes.
I mean, I think that you can't just say
I'm saying there's
private industry is going to.
We're a little bit short. Yeah.
Yeah,
we have a proper role.
Yeah.
We have
infrastructure. Regulatory streamlining. There are things that the government can do policy-wise to help this industry grow. So how do you see that?
So I agree with you. And if I gave the impression that it's totally we're not going to get involved, that is not my intent. As I mentioned, I am trying to balance with promoting innovation within the industry, but also taking care of safety, security, privacy. You're going to remember these 3 words for the rest of your life. And so that is a proper role of government. We also have to deal with the potential, adverse, negative potential of state-by-state regulations, which would impede the innovation that is going on in this industry. So the government does have a proper role. And what I'm saying is the government's role is extraordinarily important. We don't want to get it wrong and have adverse consequences for years to come. We are very cognizant about the proper role of government and how do we frame that? And that's why we have discussions like this. That's why we have the notice of proposed rulemaking on drones and the advanced notice of proposed rulemaking. This is all government jargon about, how do we go out to the public? We're constantly reaching out to the public and getting their point of view about how do we mitigate risk? What does the public and different stakeholder groups feel are risk factors that the government should legitimately be concerned about?
Secretary Chow, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.